Hello and welcome back to Tucson, Arizona. I am Randy. Continuation video. I'm gonna edit these together so there may or may not be an intro and exit to both videos. I don't know. Right in the middle. P-51 Mustang RC plane from HobbyZone. I got it from Horizon Hobby, and it's been a couple of weeks now since I made the first half of this video, so forgive me if I cover anything more than once. If you're wanting to get into RC airplanes, if you have any kind of wind, go bigger. Save. If you're balling on a budget, I bought this thing for $80, entry level plane, just to see what was on sale. It was cheaper than the one I bought for my dad for Christmas. Awesome plane, tons of fun. The moment wind starts picking up, and 5-7 mile an hour winds, it wants to get tossed around. I've had this thing in 3 different trees now in my neighborhood. So my tree, a couple of times, I got like a 40-foot pine tree. Went into that one. That's fun to get out. My neighbors have an equally big tree in their front yard. It's landed in that. And I got a neighbor a ways down from me that has a tree with like vines growing all the way to like their back wall, and it landed in that when a big windstorm picked up while I was flying. It was super calm. I'm out there zipping around. I've never killed a battery, so it comes with 2 of these little 1S lipos. Great little batteries. They don't take very long to charge. I think the book says they get like 6 or 7 minutes worth of flight time. I've been able to go 10, 12 minutes and never actually have a dead battery. I've successfully landed this plane now a handful of times, exactly where I wanted it without issue. I have landed in ways I didn't mean to land several times as well. Landing it does get tricky with this plane and with the plane that I bought for my dad. I wish I'd have known about some of these things beforehand, because I probably would have bought different planes. The forward landing gear is very chintzy. My plane no longer has forward landing gear on it. They do go right here on the underside of the wings. They've got these little plastic inserts that lock in your landing gear. And if I had a good landing gear here, I would show you. I've ordered new landing gear. They're supposed to be here. I think they were supposed to be here like yesterday or today. Haven't gotten here yet. I'm missing an insert on this wing. So clearly during one of my rougher landings, my accidental landings, I think it popped part of the plastic piece free, and I didn't notice. So then when it went into one of the neighbor's trees, when I recovered the plane, I was missing a whole landing gear and the insert. With this model plane, you can buy an entire new foam plane, right? I think I paid $80 for the plane. I think the new entirety is $60. If I'm going to spend $60, I'm just going to throw that towards a different plane altogether. This is super fun. And once you start messing with it and really getting used to the controls, instead of just using your flaps, your ailerons, if you start introducing your rear rudder for steering, it goes from taking a bank with just flaps, like my old square body dually does, real wide. You need a lot of real estate to come back around. You introduce those flaps, and it cuts like a freaking Mustang. Like, it whips around. Super fun. Once it's in the air, pretty damn easy to control. A lot of fun. Once wind starts picking up, like I was just flying this afternoon, so I've had this for like 2 weeks now. Every time the wind picks up, it starts to fight. So I was out flying this afternoon for about 20 minutes. I was coming around, wind picked up. I'm going with the wind. I get to the end of where I'm wanting to fly, because I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to be over some houses, and I don't want to try to retrieve it from other neighbors' backyards when I don't know those neighbors all that well. So I start trying to come about to come into the headwind, and it was fighting once it got halfway through the bank, even with the rudder engaged to create a much stiffer turn. Um, it fought and fought and fought and finally got around, and then kind of hovered in place for a little while. It was definitely fighting the headwind, so I throttled harder and then came out of it, and then it just started fighting the wind, and I was trying to bring it into land, and the wind was just making it way too turbulent and wound up putting it into my tree. But I mean, it's a nice soft landing pine tree, big, soft, flimsy limbs. So boom, just placed there about 20 feet in the air, and I got it down. Um, the nice, it's it's good and bad with this plane. The quick release servo saver, motor savers connections are both awesome and not awesome at the same time. You burn through these little fittings, and I mean, you not even gonna be able to tell I've got them in my hand because my lighting's kind of harsh in here, but they're little bitty fittings. There's male and female, so you've got your prop assembly, and there's a little white center cap in there, and they lock into these other fittings. And then if your prop smacks anything too hard, it disassembles everything, so your prop just drops off, and then you're saving your motor essentially. I've had to reglue this motor assembly back into place from a really aggressive landing. Um, so you're gonna have to reglue your plane together. There's no two ways about it. Like, you're not getting around it. You're also gonna need to buy spare props. So far, completely different model planes. My dad has had to order new props. I bought 2 or 3 spares with his plane. Each plane comes with 2 props, and a couple of different little servo saver connections, and then 2 batteries, your radio, your instruction booklet, all that fun stuff. I've since ordered 2 more prop assemblies and I think 3 different little connector kits. So I've gone through at least 9 of these. At least 9, maybe 10. Yeah, it's prop and spinner. I think this is also prop and spinner bag. And prop and spinner. Each plane takes its own prop and nose cone assemblies. Super cheap. These are all like $3 per kit, and they each come with male and female adapter plus your nose cone. I've only really damaged 1 prop so far, but the nose cones and everything you can unscrew. Is a little center screw. Comes with a little screwdriver if you don't have one. I got thousands of those stupid things. Take everything apart and swap them out because I have cracked a nose cone. I've done some pretty decent damage to the nose of the plane on the foam. Everything does glue back up pretty good. I've glued the motor back in pretty easily. Haven't had problems with any of the flaps. Everything's adjustable. I mean, you have trim on your radio to trim in all your controls, but each rod that connects from a servo to a flap has these little U-bends in the wire. It's like a nice stiff small gauge wire, but they each have a U-bend in them. And I'm trying to I wish I had an auto zoom camera, but they each have a little U-bend in the wires. And those are for opening or closing the bend to adjust a flap. So if you're having a problem, if you wreck it, if you come in too hot, you wreck your plane and you throw something kind of out and you can't quite trim it in the way you want, you just use some needle nose pliers, open and close those loops. It'll adjust your flaps. I've had to do it with my tail rudder once. I don't know what happened. It just wouldn't quite go back to 0. So when you go to take off and you're trying to climb, and my roads kind of suck, so I'm doing hand launches. So you go to toss it, launch it, you're trying to grab altitude. You're only like 4 feet off the ground. If that tail rudder's bent in any direction, it's going to kick you in a direction. So I was trying to climb and had a really hard time climbing, and I'm not sure what was going on that day, but it was climbing hard to the left, like really hard. Like immediately, as soon as I tossed it, it wanted to shoot off banking left really hard. So I had to go through and adjust that. Since then, I've been able to adjust it, get it fine tuned, and flies great. But if you have any wind, you're going to want to save up your pennies and buy a bigger plane. Something with a lot more horsepower that's running a 2S or even a 3S LiPo battery, bigger, beefier motor. My next plane, I'm going to get the Jet. I really want to check out the Jets now. This is a lot of fun. It's such a wonderful feeling the first time you get it in the air and you're zipping around for minutes, and it feels great. It's fun to watch. All of my neighbors come out, every time my neighbors have seen me out there, they're watching it. They think it's hilarious. My neighborhood kids all think it's freaking cool. It's a lot of fun. My kids dig it. But any wind and this little foam thing will get tossed around. So if you've got a park, if you're on big acreage, any open area is going to be a lot of fun. And I think even with wind, you'll be able to fight it, come down lower, because your winds are going to be a lot heavier once you're 40 feet, 50 feet in the air. I've had this thing up pretty high. I've had it up to a point where it kind of gets to be difficult to see because it's silver. So once you're up there in the sky and everything's kind of a bright, beautiful day out, you start to kind of lose sight of it. So it'll climb. It'll go. I don't know what the ceiling on it is, but it'll go up there. And I've cleared my 40-foot tree all day long. So I've probably had it upwards of 60 feet. And very aerodynamic. And the cool thing is with these things is, they're meant for beginners. On your radio, you've got a toggle switch right up here. And you go all the way away from you is beginner, center is intermediate, closest to you is experience. That unlocks certain abilities of this thing. So it's got an internal gyro. So if I had the battery in there and I'm holding the plane, if I'm tilting it, my flaps are moving. It's trying to stay level. Same thing if you start kicking it, rotating it sideways, your tail starts acting up. So everything about this wants to stay flat. You physically stick down, stick up to control that. It's also got an aerobatics button right here on this side. So if you're experienced and you have this plane, you can flip that bad boy all the way up to experienced and hit aerobatics, and this thing will unlock, and you can make it do barrel rolls. I have had it inverted, and it flies inverted pretty cool. I've done one barrel roll with it successfully in the air. I've done not quite a full climb and stall into a roll, but very close. A lot of fun. This thing's, it's great. If you've got the room for it, if you've got good weather, this thing's awesome. Couldn't recommend it enough, especially for the price point, and spare parts are dirt cheap. $3 for these, or maybe $4. I think it was like $3 for all the other little fittings. But this one doesn't have an inexpensive fuselage. There's no separate parts to the fuselage to replace. Once you start going up in price of planes, which probably equals quality of planes, they start getting different parts that you can replace. We'll circle back to the landing gear. Landing gear is super chintzy. On the upgraded, like $300 version of the Mustang, your prop, instead of being a twin prop, is a 4-blade prop. And your landing gear is more affixed to the wing. And it actually has like the little armor on it, just like the proper, the real plane. They come out of the wing sideways. So they actually have like the shielding. They're more secure to the plane. They're replaceable. These are replaceable, but once you're missing that little center cap, they don't sell those center caps. So generally speaking, super fun plane, really friendly for beginners. If you've got smooth concrete anywhere, like even a basketball court, doing a rolling takeoff would be easy and fun. If you're like me and you live in a city where the roads are just garbage and they come through every couple of months and just pour more asphalt in and just leave your road just janky as all hell, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to learn how to take off by tossing it. Super fun though. I would recommend it all day long. If you're in a windy environment and it's often windy, get a bigger plane. This thing's going to fight you. You're going to feel terrible. You're going to get frustrated. And it doesn't, if you're like me, it takes nothing to get frustrated. So when you're dumping it, you know, an $80 investment plus all the other little stuff, and it's just constantly going into the ground because of wind or going into trees, it's going to get old fast. I believe the jets, like I'm looking at the A10 Warthog. I'm from Tucson. We're real big on the A10 out here. It's kind of the home of the Warthog. Um, from what I understand, the jets have a lot more oomph. So when you do a hand launch, it just goes. There's not a lot of fighting. It's physically probably 3 times the size of this. So that's the next one I'm really hopeful for. But anyways, I think it's super awesome, very inexpensive, a lot of fun, and certainly could be more fun in the proper environment. So if you enjoyed this, check it out, man. If you want to get into airplanes, they're super fun. I've only flown a few of them now, but I'm definitely hooked. I definitely want to get more into this side of the hobby. I'm also planning on buying another helicopter soon so I can start flying that. Sorry there's no video of me flying it and wrecking it. Half the time I was flying this, it was just kind of when I had time and didn't really have anyone around to be a cameraman. And trying to set up a camera on a tripod while trying to do this, I would almost always be out of frame. So it's kind of pointless to try to do that by myself. Even with a GoPro, once it gets far away, GoPros aren't great for anything past, say, 20 feet from you. So it would have been pointless. But it's eventually I'd like to get some video. And once I get a few more of these, it's probably going to have my kids flying them with me or have my wife learn how to wreck these things. Successful landings do exist. It's all about steady control on your throttle and your stick, bringing it in. I've successfully landed this thing quite a few times exactly where I wanted it to with no issues. But crash landing, if you get in one of these, you're going to crash it. And you're probably going to crash it the first 3 or 4 times you put it down. But when it's in the air, it's a hell of a lot of fun. So get out there and check it out, man. Get into hobbies, get into RCs. They're super fun, and they're making them very inexpensive nowadays. That was never the case for me growing up. They seem to always be out of my budget, but they're getting cheaper. So get out there and have some fun, man. Try something new. I think you'll really dig it. So yeah, from Tucson, Arizona, I'm Randy. Bye.